Hello, this video is meant to remind you how to create pivot tables and to expand on what you've had a lot of practice on before, which was making single pivot tables. But we're going to talk about how to make a pivot table by categories of another categorical variable. So essentially making a relative frequency table of a categorical variable across categories of another variable. So this is something that we did actually touch on in the beginning of the course, but very briefly. So you'll see that it's just a very simple extension of what you've already done. So we're going to use this data set, and the two variables that we're interested in here are low and smoke. So I'm going to insert pivot table, and let's just choose the full range of each of these variables. And we're going to put it right in this space that's highlighted with green. Click OK. All right, so if I had wanted to make a pivot table of low, then, or relative frequency table, we would have taken low and we would have moved it to the rows, okay? And then we would have taken low and we moved it to the values. So what I have here is the frequency of low within each of these categories. So I'm going to click on this little downward triangle, go to value field settings, and I'm going to change that to count and click OK. So now what I have is the count of low for each of these categories. But what I'd really like to do, and this is what's very similar to your final project, is I'd like to get the relative frequency of low across categories of smoke. So now what I do is I take smoke to the columns. So what I have here is the frequency of low within each of the categories of smoke. So I have 83 among people who are non-smokers. 83 did not have low birth weight babies, and 29 did have low birth weight babies. And among people who are smokers, 47 did not have low birth weight babies, and 30 did. So now if we rarely want to be looking at the frequency, right? We want the relative frequency. So we're simply going to go back down to values, click that little downward arrow, value field settings, show values as. I'm going to change this to percent of column total and click OK. Now I have this funky column here. I'm just going to click on the little drop down arrow by smoke and unclick blank. So now I have a clean table that's giving me the relative frequency within categories of smoke. All right, if you have further questions, please feel free to email me.